who share a dream of becoming world champion. It's about fans, millions of them across the globe. But most of all, Formula One is about racing, a contest of speed and daring, probing the limits of a driver's ability. Testing the powers of the world's most exotic racing cars, and sometimes going beyond the edge. It's a drama played out on the world's most glittering stages. It's about teams performing together. And one driver working alone, perfecting the skill of controlling a car at speed. It's about the quest to be the fastest, the bravest, the best, to win, to claim the glory and the bounty, to live the life of a rock star or a movie idol, to be Formula One World Driving Champion. Thus far, 1992 has been all Nigel Mansell and the Williams-Renault team. In the season-opening race at Kyalami, South Africa, Nigel Mansell and teammate Riccardo Patrese leaped into the top 2 positions at the green light and never looked back. For Mansell, it marked a winning return to Kyalami after a 7-year absence. And for car owner Frank Williams, a step up on the arch-rival McLaren Honda team. In round 2 at Mexico City, it was all Williams and Nigel Mansell once again, while others struggled. Most notably, Ivan Capelli, who crashed at the start as the legendary Ferrari team struggled into the new season. Again, Mansell and Patrese finished first and second. Then in round 3 at Sao Paulo, Brazil, things went even better as Mansell and Patrese nearly lapped the field. Today, Nigel Mansell hopes to equal Ayrton Senna's 91 record of 4 straight season-opening victories, grasping the lead in the race for the World Championship, a title he has never won. The Grand Prix season encompasses 16 races touching 5 continents in the quest for the World Championship. In the course of the journey, the contenders will race over 3,200 miles, travel nearly 100,000, spend more than $500 million, and be watched by more than 2 billion people. ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. Race morning dawned cold, chilly, and wet at the foot of the snow-capped Pyrenees as the Formula One World Driving Championship comes to Barcelona, Spain. The first 3 races of this globe-girdling 16-event series took the drivers to Africa, North and South America. Today, round 4 brings them to Europe for the first of 3 races before returning to Canada in June. Today, it is the Grand Prix of Spain in Barcelona, the world's Olympic city for 1992. Hello once again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha. Welcome to a fairly miserable day here in Barcelona, but at least it's dry and it should make for a great race. Spain is the hottest country on the continent right now. Madrid has been selected as Europe's cultural capital this year. Seville will host a World's Fair. And of course, in less than 2 months, the Summer Olympic Games will take place right here in Barcelona. A year ago, this racetrack was opened specifically for this event, and it produced one of the best Formula One races of the season. Here's our David Hobbs with a look back at the Grand Prix of Spain, 1991.
After a disastrous Portuguese Grand Prix the week before, to stay in the championship with only 3 rounds left, Nigel Mansell had to do well in Spain last year. But on a damp track, Gerhard Berger from the pole takes his teammate Ayrton Senna into the lead. But look at this pass as Nigel Mansell braves it out wheel to wheel with Senna into turn 1 and takes away second spot. After a pit stop, they're now on slicks, and Senna spins right in front of Nigel Mansell and Michael Schumacher and somehow misses everybody and also gets off the grass. Another great pass by Nigel Mansell on Gerhard Berger, and he takes the lead. Schumacher spins again onto the grass, manages to get it off that wet grass and finish 6th, scoring a point. Senna came 5th. The gap is now down to 16 points with 20 up for grabs as Nigel Mansell takes the checkered flag.
Joining me again today, as he did a year ago, ESPN Formula One analyst David Hobbs. David, that was September. This is May, but the conditions are very much the same. Everything else, however, has changed a lot.
Absolutely 180 degrees, Bob. The chaser has now become the chased. It's Ayrton Senna, who is desperately trying to get points to stay in with a chance of winning his 4th World Championship. Nigel Mansell's on the pole for the 4th time this year and looks good to win 4 races in a row, just as Senna did last year. But there are other people in this race as well as them, and Gerhard Berger went very well this morning in a wet warm-up, and yesterday afternoon John Alesi at last got the Ferrari wound up, and he was quickest in both sessions yesterday afternoon. And of course Michael Schumacher is very quick in the new 192 Benetton, so it could be a very, very good race this afternoon.
We have a lot of new equipment and some new personalities to tell you about, but it will all come down to the conditions at race time. And for more on that, let's get down to the pit lane and Andrew Marriott.
Yes, Bob, it's the classic do we, don't you situation. It is spotting with rain here, and some drivers have changed. Gerhard Berger has changed. Just behind me, you see the Ligier making a change. I don't believe, but I can't see from here, that Mansell has. Whatever happens, we're going to see a lot of pit stops. It's almost a repeat of last year when, of course, it started in the rain and then went on to dry later in the race. So this could be a really scintillating Grand Prix here in Spain. Back to you in the booth. We'll bring you a little more news as soon as we've got it.
In a nation full of exotic cities, Barcelona, Spain stands out. It is a vacation spot for most of the rest of Europe, and 400,000 visitors are expected in the 2 weeks of the Olympic Games. ESPN coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of Spain from Barcelona is brought to you by Suzuki. Your Suzuki dealer has the ride you've been waiting for and the financing to get it. Back at the Circuito de Catalunya in Barcelona, Spain, as always happens on live television, no sooner do I get through telling you that it's fairly dry than it starts to rain, and we have a mad scramble down there on the grid. You're watching live as the teams prepare for the Grand Prix of Spain. Now let's take a look at the starting lineup for today's race. On the pole, Nigel Mansell, the only pole sitter and the only winner in Formula One this year, with a lap at 132.42 miles an hour in the dry. He's the defending champion in this race. Next to him will be German sensation Michael Schumacher in the Benetton Ford, the Benetton team celebrating their 100th Grand Prix. On row 2, Ayrton Senna of Brazil and the McLaren Honda, the new MP47, but only 10th in this morning's warm-up. Next to him, Italian Riccardo Patrese in the second Williams Renault in his record-extending 228th Formula One start. Row 3 will be Ivan Capelli of Italy in the Ferrari. They think they have their engine problems licked. They have their 1992 power plants in there. Next to him will be Martin Brundle of Great Britain in the second Benetton Ford, 5th fastest in the warm-up. Row 4 will be Gerhard Berger of Austria, as David mentioned, going very well this weekend, quickest in the warm-up this morning. Next to him, Jean Alesi of France in the Ferrari, fastest in the Saturday wet sessions. Elsewhere on the grid, Carl Wendlinger of Austria. The march is going very well on the smooth track. Next to him, the Ligier of Eric Comas of France. Row 6, Andrea de Cesaris of Italy in the Tyrrell Ilmor, next to the Dallara Ferrari of Finn J.J. Leto. Row number 7 will be Pierluigi Martini of Italy in the next Dallara, next to the Ligier of Terry Boutsen of Belgium. Row 8, Olivier Griard of France and Michele Alboreto. On row 9, Maurizio Guglielmin of Brazil and Gabriele Tarquini of Italy. Row 10, Aguri Suzuki of Japan, next to Andrea Chiesa of Switzerland. Row 11 will be Mika Hakkinen of Finland in the Lotus, next to the Minardi of Christian Fittipaldi of Brazil. Row 12, Paul Belmondo of France, next to countryman Bertrand Gachot. Gianni Morbidelli of Italy will be on row 13, next to Johnny Herbert of Great Britain in the Lotus. As usual, there are stories among those who did not qualify. For more on that, let's get back down to Andrew.
Yes, Bob, well, Katayama, the rookie Japanese, didn't get in. Neither of the Brabhams got in either. That's including Damon Hill, son of the late Graham Hill, trying to make his debut. Also, Eric van der Poel in the second Brabham didn't get in, but the big story down here, Stefano Modena, the Italian, the fiery Italian, in the second of the Jordans, he didn't make it for the second time in 4 races. That puts a bit of a question mark over his career. Back to you, Bob.
All right, thank you, Andrew. David, how about giving us a closer look at this track?
Well, at 2.95 miles, it's quite long. With 15 turns, there's plenty of key points, but I guess the most important ones would be going into turn 1, what's called the Elf corner. This is where most of the overtaking is going to go on this afternoon. And then we go on to turn 7, which is the Wurt turn. This is a downhill left-hander. We might see a little bit of passing there, but it's important to get a good shot out of this because the ground rises quite steeply after that, and we have a long, fast stretch. Then down into turn number 12, which is called La Cascia. This is another sharp left-hander. I think we'll see some overtaking here. Then there's a long right-hander. Then the last two corners, turns 14 and 15, are very, very important because they lead you onto that 1 kilometer main straight, which is where it's important to A, pick up speed, and B, be well placed to pass at the end of that straight.
Nigel Mansell brings the field around to set the grid for the start. Here's a look at our race analysis. The temperature about 65 degrees. It's warmed up just a little bit. Heavy clouds overhead. It is raining at the moment. We're only about 300 feet above sea level, so the altitude equation has changed totally in Formula One from what we had in South Africa and Mexico City. We expect the rain to continue. Points coming in. Nigel Mansell with his perfect 3 victories, 30 points to his teammate Riccardo Patrese's 18. Michael Schumacher with 11, followed by Gerhard Berger and Ayrton Senna, still looking for his first victory of the season.
About the worst conditions that you can possibly imagine, really. The track has sort of dried out, and now it's just got a damp sprinkle on top. About as greasy and slippery as you could possibly get, but probably not wet enough to put full wet weather tires on.
Several of the teams using elaborate new traction control systems, and the drivers say they work best in the wet. We're looking at the back of the FISA safety officer, Roland Bruncerada, who will decide whether or not this race will begin as the rain continues to fall here in Spain. When the field is set, a flag will be waved at the back, and we will have a green light. We are assuming at this point. There is the green flag. Looks like we will have a start. Michael Schumacher, in his best qualifying position ever, will be next to Nigel Mansell going down to that first corner.
Whoa!
John Alesi.
Oh!
Chaos at the start as one of the Ferraris darted up the middle. Nigel Mansell slow getting away. His teammate Riccardo Patrese is right there behind him as they mass toward turn 1.
The front row hardly moved there. Alesi came in, bumped Patrese. Patrese bumped Mansell. The usual familiar traffic jam into turn 1, and Nigel Mansell is in fact leading.
Here's where we had a crash a year ago. Capelli then with the March team. Looks like everybody away cleanly.
You can see the rain on the camera lens there. Very, very slippery. You'll see these cars twitching around an awful lot.
Now it looks like Nigel Mansell may be on slick tires. We didn't get confirmation whether he has them or not. The field moving quite slowly, and I wouldn't be surprised if that Ferrari, if it was Alesi or Capelli, will pick up a fine or a time penalty for jumping the start.
Well, I don't know that he did jump it. I think the others were terribly slow away. There you see one of the Benettons. I think that was Michael Schumacher, only just in front of Martin Brundle. Martin Brundle, another guy who's kind of in the gun now, really has to perform well this year, rather overshadowed by his new teammate, Martin Schumacher.
You see the sheen on the racetrack. Looks as though the rain has been heavy on the back part of this racetrack a little bit. Now this section looks almost dry.
It is just drizzling. And if it continues to drizzle, here we see the scene as it's shown from Senna's car very, very briefly there.
Field is moving awfully slowly, it seems
well,
to me.
I tell you,
I don't see any flags anywhere.
It's as slippery as old Nick out there, I think, is the answer.
Tires have been the ultimate question here this weekend. We had a dry session on Friday. Saturday was an absolute monsoon. None of the teams made a tire choice. They were all running soft tires. There were a lot of blistering problems. This is a very slippery circuit. And then the question today was wets or dries. Across the finish line they come. Nigel Mansell, Riccardo Patrese, Jean Alesi in the Ferrari, then Michael Schumacher, Ayrton Senna, Martin Brundle, Gerhard Berger, Yvonne Capelli, Eric Comas, and Olivier Griard rounds out the top 10 in the Tyrrell. A lot of dirt and crud on the racetrack. It looks like somebody got off in that first corner that we did not see and put a lot of gravel on the track. Nigel Mansell now begins to open his lead over teammate Riccardo Patrese, then the Ferrari of young Alesi, then Schumacher, even younger still.
Yes, it's an amazing testament to Nigel Mansell. He'll be 39 this year, and his teammate Patrese will be 38 this year. And yet there they are, absolutely duking out with the best of these young, very young, bright drivers. And there's a couple of relatively old codgers. You can see all that gravel on the track there. Somebody else up, that's another corner where somebody gone off.
Lots of crud on the racetrack in the early going. This could be a very, very dramatic Grand Prix of Spain. You're riding with Ayrton Senna, the defending world champion, still looking for his first win in 1992. That is the new McLaren, and we expect to see lots more of it today. From high above the Circuito de Catalunya, we'll take a quick time out and return to the Grand Prix of Spain. This is Barcelona, a city of 1.7 million people, the center of a population area totaling some 4 million, with plenty more still to come in less than 2 months when the Olympic Games roll into town. Beautiful Barcelona is the site of round 4 in the 1992 World Driving Championship, and we'll be back to the Circuito de Catalunya in just a moment. After a dramatic opening moments in the Grand Prix of Spain, that is Andrea de Cesaris, one of the most experienced drivers in Formula One, who brought his Tyrrell in. They changed tires, rain tires for rain tires, no change to slicks. And as you can see, Andrea has now gotten out of the car and is standing in the midst of a clutch of journalists. We'll try to get down to him in just a moment with Andrew. Meanwhile, there is Ricardo Patrese running in second position, working the 4th of 65 laps in this race. You're watching live at the Circuito de Catalunya in Barcelona.
Yet again, the two Williams putting some serious space between themselves and their immediate pursuers. Third spot at the moment is young Michael Schumacher, followed closely by Ayrton Senna. But as you can see, they've got a fairly healthy lead. A lot of gravel there, been swept off to the edge of the racing line. Both these cars have got, as you can see, they've got the wet weather tyres on. Barely wet enough for those at the moment. I imagine they'd be getting some wear on those tyres, conditions being what they are. Now they want it to either rain more or stop altogether.
We didn't see any of the events around the racetrack that might have kicked up all that gravel, but there certainly seems to be a lot of it out there. There was only one support race for today's Grand Prix, and it was run fairly cleanly start to finish.
John Alesi, of course, is in third spot, not Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher giving him a hard time. You remember back in South Africa? Similar sort of race for third spot as the two Williams drove away from them there.
Good look at John Alesi there. There were many rumors about the future of Ferrari, even the possibility that Ferrari might pull out of Formula One and take a sabbatical while they reorganized. But the chairman of the company, Fiat, which now owns Ferrari, Gianni Agnelli, was here this weekend, and he and the Ferrari brass held a press conference in which they tried to reassure everyone that the legendary Ferrari prancing horse is not going away. That is Nigel Mansell leading the race. Let's get a comment from the pits and Andrew Marriott.
Yes, well, I'm with Andrea de Cesaris. A very short race. What happened?
Problem with the engine. A problem with the oil pressure on the engine. I don't know what.
What about the track conditions? Was it very slippy out there?
It is slippery, but what can you do? It's slippery, yes.
Did you feel confident of a top 6 finish for Ken's birthday?
I don't know. We have to see.
Okay, back to you in the booth. Thanks, Andrea.
Well, it certainly won't be a disappointed Andrea de Cesaris getting Ken Tyrrell a top 6 finish on this, his 68th birthday. Happy birthday to one of the great names in Grand Prix racing, Ken Tyrrell.
Again, the two Williams cars absolutely in a class of their own. I would have thought that usually when a chassis is this superior, when the weather turns against you, it does tend to be a leveler. But it doesn't seem to be working. The equation doesn't seem to be working today. So Alesi, obviously, now, oh, that's Martin Brundle.
And he has high-centered it. He's stuck on that 6 or 8 inch
Brundle is having a star-crossed year. Just nothing goes right for him at all. He's being somewhat overshadowed by Michael Schumacher there in the other Benetton anyway. And the last thing he needs, or the thing he needs more than anything, is just a little bit of good luck as well. And he's having the worst luck you could possibly imagine this year.
There's the red Ferrari of Jean Alesi. Behind him, Michael Schumacher, Ayrton Senna in the red and white McLaren. Gerhard Berger closing up on his teammate.
Exactly, having to go around his teammate. Matt Martin's day looks like it's done. They don't seem to be doing much about it, do they?
If the car is stuck on that curb such that the wheels don't touch the ground, it's going to be a little tough to yank off of there.
Can't just leave it there, though.
Not at all. Meanwhile, back to the battle for third place. Alesi, Schumacher, Senna, Berger, and Ivan Capelli at the end of this line of cars.
This very fast right-hand sweep onto the main straight. As I said earlier, it's a very important corner because you really want to make the best of this straight. If you ever want to have a cat and hell's chance of overtaking somebody as you come into the turn 1 area. Schumacher was just cogitating whether to do that, decided against it.
biding his time, no doubt. Car's still very heavy with a full load of fuel that adds about 300 pounds to the weight of the car. There's Riccardo Patrese. 228th Grand Prix start, just 38 years old.
Yeah. Nigel Mansell, the cool 11 seconds in front of. Here you're on board now with Patrese.
You saw Nigel disappearing into the distance. You got to look there at the brake discs glowing on that car.
See it well today as it's a bit of an overcast day.
Back to the battle for third now. Alesi and Schumacher.
It doesn't look like it, but I'm sure that Alesi is in fact holding this train of cars up. And if they could just get round him, they'd all rocket off into the distance. But easier said than done to get around him, especially in these conditions. As you can see with that gravel, there's a couple of corners that are absolutely out of the equation, this being one of them.
This is Ayrton Senna.
You can see a bit of understeer there on Senna's car. Very ginger. Very, and you can see what happens when the old power comes on these cars. Going for the inside line there. Now he goes wide, staying off the traditional line to try and get a bit more grip. Very often if you go around the outside of these corners when it's raining, you do get more grip. But of course at some stage you have to cross the line.
Just beginning to show vapor trails at the upper corners of that big white rear wing. Very, very humid here today. I think we're going to see a lot of that sort of thing as the day goes on. Nigel Mansell well up the road over his teammate Riccardo Patrese. Behind Patrese, it's about 8 seconds back.
Looks as if Schumacher's got through Alesi.
Might have been a little bit of a lean on him there.
Very much of a lean. I think Alesi got very baity about that. Didn't want to let him through. And of course, that's pushed him back into the clutches of Senna, who's going to go on that wide route. They're all going on the wide route. Here you see it from Senna's view.
To the right is Schumacher. To the left, Alesi. That's not a brake light. Ooh, there was contact there. I think Schumacher's left rear got...
Berger got Senna, and Senna retook Berger again, too, in the midst of all that.
It's got an ice rink out there. Here's from above. There's Berger going by his teammate, Senna. Senna getting him back on the outside. This is the turn 1, 2, and 3 complex. My.
And there's the other Ferrari of Capelli in the back of that picture. Meanwhile, serenely out the front, clocking in laps at 1:46 lap times, which is very slow. Qualifying was in a 1:20 range, which in fact was slow compared to last year, but of course they only had one day of it because it rained so badly on Saturday. And at this sort of lap time, this is going to be a 2-hour race. This is not going to be 196 miles. It's going to be 2 hours.
Schumacher, Alesi, Senna, Berger, and at the back is Ivan Capelli. From high above, there is the overall race leader, as he has been since South Africa back at the beginning of March. Nigel Mansell onto the front straightaway. The arts have always flourished here in Barcelona, and no art is more typical of Spain than the dance known as flamenco. This is a street performer down in Las Rambas, one of the main boulevards here. And as you can see, some of the arts must give way to commerce. On his back, a little bit of a billboard advertising the upcoming Summer Olympics. We are in Spain. We'll be back in just a moment. We are back high above the start-finish straightaway at the Circuito de Catalunya. There is Nigel Mansell going to the inside, lapping cars already. I believe that is Andrea Chiesa, the young Swiss driver in the Fondmetal. Hard braking, right-hand turn 1. This is Mansell. With 24 Grand Prix victories now, ties him for 6th on the all-time list. Team owner Frank Williams and the rest of the team looking on. Tied with Juan Manuel Fangio for 6th on the all-time list is Nigel Mansell. Behind Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna, Jackie Stewart, Jimmy Clark, and Niki Lauda. Pretty heady company.
Absolutely. And he's doing his 169th race today.
Of course, you don't need to remind Nigel Mansell that all those ahead of him and several of the drivers behind him on the all-time win list have already won at least one world championship. Nigel's still looking for his first. On board with Nigel now.
This is a very fast right-left. Oh, here we go on board now with Ayrton Senna. On board with Ayrton Senna, coming up behind John Alesi in the Ferrari, flaming out there as they go down the main straight under the big Caixa bridge.
Meanwhile, look how far away Michael Schumacher is in the Benetton. Once again with a V8 engine. as opposed to the 10s and 12s that the other cars have and are supposed to be superior on power. There's a Renault V10 in this car for Nigel Mansell. In fact, Renault brought out their newest engine to try in qualifying here. It's a little bit of a different configuration, taking away some weight, getting a few more revs wherever they can, using all of the bizarre and wonderful technology of Formula One to get up close to 14,000 revolutions. Of course, one of the tricks on the Renault engine was that pneumatic, an air-driven valve train system that is now on the Honda V12, just behind Gerhard Berger and Ayrton Senna.
And also the V8 in the Schumacher and Martin Brundle cars, although it's not doing much good for Martin Brundle just at the moment, as we've already seen him out of the race. There you see Nigel going around turn 4, long right-hander.
Let's listen now and see if we can hear whether the car is losing traction anywhere.
Going very low in the revs, listen. And that is low revving.
Being very careful under braking and downshifting as well.
This is that work corner. You can see it's quite a steep rise out of there. Normally this is a very fast right-hand flick, as are this right and left-hander here.
This is downhill, long left-hander now.
He would probably normally change up at least twice between the chicane and that left-hand, and he stayed in the same gear as he's doing now. You can see him really working that steering wheel. It's very slippery.
And here comes the very sharp, fast right-handers leading.
Normally this corner here is almost flat out, this one, and here how he's backed off, and he's a couple of gears under what he would normally be.
Nigel Mansell and the domination of this Williams-Renault team had been the subject of this season in Formula One thus far. We asked Nigel to explain to us the domination of his team and whether there is anything that can be done to bring Grand Prix cars closer together.
The thing is, what you got to appreciate is that Formula One is the pinnacle of motorsport worldwide, and what I would say to you is your series that you have in America is a great series because you can sort of rule over it in one country other than one race in Australia. With our sport, literally anything goes. I mean, you can do anything you want with the engines as long as they're aspirated and 3.5 litres, but then anything else goes. With the chassis, everybody designs their own chassis completely. And it depends on the motoring manufacturers how much money they pour in and what engineers and aerodynamicists you have working for you, but I don't think you can. And people have got such short memories. I mean, you know, for the last 4 years I would suggest that McLaren dominated Formula One. Everyone's sort of up in arms. We've only dominated, if you say dominated, and I don't believe we really have, for 3 races.
Well, there you have it.
3 races. No wonder it's why. I just have to say that last year, although that here we see old Berger just having to go down the inside. That looked awfully close to Berger's right front to me. John Alesi struggling to hold him off. Alesi actually picking up a bit of speed again now, closing in slightly on old Ayrton Senna.
John Alesi having to grow into the role of team leader at Ferrari. A difficult job at best. There is Alesi in the number 27, so closely associated with Gilles Villeneuve. Nigel Mansell drove it. Alain Prost drove it. In fact, Alain Prost is here this weekend as you drive along now with Gerhard Berger. He has signed a 3-year television contract with a French network to comment on Formula One Grand Prix racing. Now, what happens if he gets back into a car next year?
It's going to be awfully noisy feed, isn't it? I think that Williams have dominated in a way that McLaren haven't dominated since about 1988-89. Last year, although Senna won the first 4 races, quite frankly, Williams could have won any one of those races with just a little bit of luck. And but this year, nobody else has even been close. And at least McLaren Honda this week have started to show a little bit more of that old form they had before. Of course, obviously, we've got to see yet how reliable they were. You remember Brazil just 3 weeks ago, they both dropped out.
Look from high above the Circuito de Catalunya. Really a driver's racetrack. Billiard table smooth. Lots of turns, long straightaway, a few passing areas. This is Nigel Mansell. Weaving back and forth.
Well, I think he's looking for a bit of Probably looking for a bit of wet now, because the rain has slowed up just a little bit, and he'll be needing to keep the tyres damp now to keep them cool. These deep treaded, block treaded tyres are magnificent in the rain, but they do need to be cool once it starts to dry out. Otherwise, you soon rip the old tread off, and it's too early for them to want to stop yet.
We're working lap number 12 of 65. One more note on the racetrack. Representatives of the proposed new facility, including a Grand Prix type road course outside Atlantic City, New Jersey, are here this weekend, talking with Bernie Ecclestone and the Spanish officials who built this racetrack. Let's get down quickly down to the pit lane and Andrew Marriott.
Yes, well, I'm just looking at Thierry Boutsen here, who's having some electronics changed on the car. It looks as if it's going to be a long job. No good result from Thierry this weekend. Also, we saw a couple of cars, Wendlinger come in, and one of the Fond Metals. They started on slicks. Just 3 cars started on slicks. That was obviously the wrong decision. Back to you in the booth.
There is some dissension in that team. Thierry Boutsen and his teammate Eric Comas, who had a coming together in Brazil, are not exactly on the best of terms this weekend in Spain. The action continues from high above the circuit here in Barcelona. This is Las Ramblas, a broad Parisian-style boulevard in downtown Barcelona, lined with trees, shops, bookstores, and fancy restaurants. Ernest Hemingway once called it the most beautiful street in the world, and everyone here in Barcelona has enjoyed it. We'll be right back. We are back in Barcelona, Spain. You're watching the race leader, Nigel Mansell, as he has been since the green light, working lap number 14 now of 65 scheduled. The rain continues to fall. There's a look at Gerhard Berger, who just moments ago had a wheel-to-wheel coming together with Jean Alesi in the Ferrari.
They've got a very unpleasant track to drive on this afternoon, Bob. It's just drizzling enough to keep it slippery. You can see they're all using wet weather tyres, but I don't know whether it's quite wet enough to make full use of those tyres, although it is obviously extremely slippery. The odd time we've been on the onboard camera, you can see how hard these guys are working. We've had a couple of comings together. Poor old Martin Brundle's off the track, and I think that what I can't understand is whoa, look at old Nige there coming onto the main straight. And we know that he's going through that corner probably 50 miles an hour slower than he would do in the dry. Very, very slippery.
Here comes Ricardo Patrese in the number 6 Williams. Now let's take a look at what happened moments ago as Alesi and Gerhard Berger entered this corner together. They've already made contact. There goes Alesi on the left of your screen, roundy round in the red Ferrari. Berger manages to avoid him. Watch Alesi boil the hides.
Jeepers, look at that. Wow. Good for the drive shafts, all that sort of stuff. Here you see it from on board. And really, Gerhard hadn't got a prayer here. He comes down the inside, and Alesi shuts the door on him, and he's already in there. That's kind of what they call shutting the door after the horse is bolted. Berger's left front makes contact with Alesi's right rear, spins Alesi round, needs an look at old Berger fighting out every inch of the race there. Because it is so slippery now. Once you get knocked out of shape like that and you're trying to get the thing to grip, it's not easy at all.
Nigel Mansell right there is on lap 15. He leads Ricardo Patrese by 3.5 seconds. Last time across the finish line. Schumacher is 14.8 seconds behind Patrese. So it's another Williams-Renault 1-2 up front. There's one of the Lotus cars.
Johnny Herbert.
Johnny Herbert in the brightly colored helmet, helping them to push it off. They've got a new car coming. It's here this weekend, but they're not going to race it until the next round, 2 weeks from now at Imola. Quickly to the pit lane now, and Andrew Marriott.
Yeah, well, actually in the pit garage now with Thierry Boutsen, they tried to fix the problem. He did one more lap. It was obviously no good at all. It's terminal. Thierry's just climbing out of the cockpit of the Ligier, so not a happy race for him. Probably get hold of him in just a few minutes, but back to you for the moment, Bob.
All right, thank you, Andrew. You saw what happened to Johnny Herbert out there on the racetrack. He spun around backwards. I thought maybe he was going to do one of those Jean Alesi-style burnout kick-arounds.
Nigel Mansell, to show you the incredible superiority of the Mansell Williams Renault. Here he is lapping Andrea Chiesa for the second time, and the race has only done 15 laps of a 65-lap race. For God's sake, he's going to be 10 laps down at the end.
Nigel Mansell, with 15 laps complete, leads Patrese by 3.3 seconds. They are drawing away from Michael Schumacher in the Benetton, now 16.3 seconds back. Then Ayrton Senna 5.8 seconds behind Schumacher. Berger 2 seconds behind his teammate. Capelli right there behind Gerhard Berger to the tune of 2.7. And then Jean Alesi, who got himself restarted, but he's 5 seconds down in 7th place.
I really did think, as I said at the beginning of the show, I really thought that in the rain, from the way Alesi, Berger and Schumacher had been going, that they would be putting up a better show. I'm surprised that Schumacher is 20-odd seconds behind the leader as we look at Gerhard Berger catching up with Ayrton Senna, his teammate, again.
There's Michael Schumacher in the sole remaining Benetton. This is the new car, known as the B192, with that Ford V8 engine in the back. Now Andrew Marriott has caught up with Terry Boutsen. Let's get back to the pits.
Terry, what happened there? It sounded awful, the engine.
Yeah, a slight problem with the engine. I don't know. They don't know yet what happened. I lost quite a few cylinders, so I don't know what happened, really.
What about the racetrack conditions? It looks terrible out there.
Well, it's very, very slippery, very difficult, but it's okay. I mean, it's. I think it's going to be a good race, but it's very slippery, and it requires a lot of skills to be quick here.
Okay, thanks very much, Terry. Bad luck.
I have driven with Terry Boutsen on the snow in La Plagne in France in the passenger seat of a BMW. And I can tell you, if the going is slippery, old Terry is something else to behold. So if he says it's slippery, take my word for it, it's slippery.
Ayrton Senna in the red and white McLaren with the yellow helmet has just gone around. Christian Fittipaldi, just 21 years of age. His father, Wilson, and grandfather, Wilson, are here. I'm sure Uncle Emerson is probably looking in early in the morning back in the United States.
Uncle Emerson will be getting ready to go out on the Indy 500 racing ground in just about an hour's time, I suppose. No, hour and a half for him out there in the Midwest.
16 laps complete, working lap number 17. This is Ayrton Senna taking that wide line, David explained.
Ooh, slippery down here. This is the worked hairpin. On the gas, briefly, up to the long right-hander. This is where Schumacher had that big spin on Friday afternoon in the dry. I don't think blistering dry tyres are going to be a problem for these guys this afternoon, unless it stops raining instantly. But as you can see from the lens of that camera, no signs of it doing that at the moment.
That is the new McLaren. The weather has given us all kinds of problems this weekend. Lots of spins, lots of drivers off the track in the qualifying and practice sessions. Here's David Hobbs with a look at the particulars.
Friday afternoon on blistered tyres, Michael Schumacher leapt off the track at great speed, damaging his new Benetton 192 beyond repair. The next day, as you can see, it rained heavily. Nigel Mansell, who'd set the pole the day before, slid off onto the gravel, tearing off little bits of bodywork, and then sat in his car and cogitated for a moment, or two, or three, or four, waiting for divine guidance to come from somewhere. As you can see from this camera lens, it really was wet. Alesi slightly misjudged it on one of the corners across the grass, also onto the sand trap, ripping off bits of bodywork. But he then jumped in the spare car and was quickest in both wet sessions. And then old Schumacher, not wishing to be outdone, pirouetted down the road across the grass, tearing off more bits of bodywork but causing no real damage. I expect they were hoping that was the last of the wet. But unfortunately, they've got a wet race this afternoon.
Partially wet, partially dry. The head scratching continues in the pit lane. Here's Andrew Marriott.
Yes, well, 4 times Martin Brundle we've met like this in 4 races this season. What happened this time?
Sounds like a catalogue, doesn't it? It's just going from bad to worse. We had a clutch problem in the warm-up with the clutch going away. We tried to fix it. We thought we had fixed it. On the second lap of the race, I lost the clutch pedal again, which makes it very difficult to downshift. And I slid wide on one corner and lost 3 places. Regaining one of those places, I passed Comas, and he tried to retake me, understandably, and understeered into my right rear tyre. And I spun off the road, and the car ended up beached on a curb.
Bad luck, Martin. Back to you in the booth.
All right, Thank you, Andrew. 18 laps of this Grand Prix of Spain are in the book. Nigel Mansell is the leader, 4.1 seconds back. Ricardo Patrese. The rest of the field nowhere in sight. We'll be back for more from Spain. Working lap number 20 of 65 in the Grand Prix of Spain. Bob Varsha, David Hobbs, Andrew Marriott with you. There is Nigel Mansell in his Williams Renault. There is Ayrton Senna in the brand new McLaren MP47 Honda. Just behind him, his teammate, Gerhard Berger. They run in 4th and 5th positions right now, which is a big improvement over their performance in the recent Grand Prix of Brazil, where this man, Berger, only made about 4 laps, and Senna only 17 in front of his home fans.
But with, of course, only 20 laps done here, there's still plenty of things that can go wrong, and a lot of people are going to say, is the championship over if Mansell wins this race? Well, if he does, he'll have 40 points, and if Senna finishes where he is now, he'll have 7, which is similar to what it was at this time last year. And if you remember, Mansell came back very strongly. However, the big dissimilarity between this year and last year is that this car, Mansell and Patrese, always were competitive right from the first race. It's just that they had a bit of bad luck those first 2 or 3 races, but they were always very, very competitive. McLaren has a long way to go yet until it's truly competitive. Ricardo Patrese's off.
Well off, pointed directly at the wall. Looks like that right front wheel is a little askew.
Well, that's the sort of opportunity that Senna and Schumacher are going to need here. We see him coming up to lap somebody, and it just gets away from him.
On the wet.
And he just tags the wall. Boom.
Yeah,
it's the right front suspension off. Trying to hold it into the wall there. You can see him still desperately trying to steer it. No doubt got his foot hard on the brakes as well. Very disappointing for Patrese.
This is at the end of the front straightaway. There's Frank Williams, who just saw the same picture you did. Nigel Mansell leads. That will move Michael Schumacher up into 2nd place, which would be his best finish ever. He's had a couple of thirds this year. That is Mansell, who leads Schumacher by, my reckoning, 21.7 seconds. They're asking for a crane or a tow to get that Williams out of there. So it is Mansell, Schumacher 21 seconds back, Senna 6.5 seconds behind Schumacher in 3rd, Berger 1.6 behind Senna, Capelli 5.6 behind Berger, and John Alesi in the 6th and final points-paying position, 4.7 seconds behind his teammate. Back down to Andrew.
Yes, you can see I'm in the Williams garage. Frank Williams just behind me. Patrick Head here. Patrick just said to me, well, that's racing, but Nigel's doing a great job. So, looks as if they're down to 1 car here at Williams, but Nigel, well, he's still in front. Back to you, Bob.
Well, that could have an impact on the points. If Schumacher stays 2nd, he'll draw very close to Ricardo Patrese, who will likely remain in 2nd position. Ooh, the Dallara teammates, the red cars at the lower right corner of your picture. Pierluigi Martini and J.J. Leto very close together there.
There you see Nigel going serenely on his way.
Red 5, working lap 21. You can see the rain has gotten heavy in spots. I think it was a puddle or a little patch of water, like the one right there at the exit of that corner that caught Ricardo Patrese out.
This undulating circuit, of course, obviously it does lead to water running across the track. On board now with Senna. You can see him steering the car very gingerly there, applying the power as he goes uphill. Holds it onto the right-hand side of the corner here. Ooh, takes an apex.
Note the graphic about Ayrton Senna. I mentioned he is still looking for his first victory. 4 races is a long time for the Brazilian world champion to wait. It's all the way back to 1987 before you'll find a season when it took 4 races before Ayrton Senna won. It has never, since 1985, with the exception of 1987, taken him more than 2 races to pick up a victory.
Well, he's going to have to be very lucky to pick up a victory today. It could happen. Looking in the mirror just a few moments ago there to see where his teammate is, and there he is, right behind him.
Rain getting a little heavier in this corner, if that camera lens is any indication.
Going the long way around here.
Starting to see a little wisp of rooster tail behind the cars.
As you saw from that little piece of video there we had about practice on Saturday, there were real rooster tails there.
Starters have bundled up at the flag stand. Meanwhile, Johnny Herbert has walked in after parking his Lotus. He's with Andrew.
Johnny, what happened?
Well, I just had a spin. It's quite greasy at the moment, and I just had a spin and it stalled as I was spinning, so...
What about those track conditions? They are horrible, aren't they?
Yeah, the track's very, very, very slippery, as I think everybody was expecting it to be. But, you know, we're here to drive and we shouldn't really spin. But it's very, very difficult out there.
Next race, the 107 Lotus, a brand new car. Looking forward to that?
Yeah, we've had the 102D now for, you know, this year. It's done us very well. It's been a bit long in the tooth.
Thank you, Tony.
Nigel Mansell in a real clutch of traffic. There are the two Minardas in front of him, swapping places, which they just did a few moments ago that you pointed out. So he's just going to wait back, stay well clear of any action that may be resulting from that overtaking they're doing amongst themselves.
I'm not so sure. Looked like he was sticking his nose in it thoroughly. There's Ayrton Senna in the yellow helmet. Coming over the rise, this is on the front straightaway, down now into the heavy braking area where Nigel passed him last year to take second place in this race. Same place, he passed this man, Gerhard Berger, to take the lead and win in the first Spanish Grand Prix held here on the Catalonia circuit. We are working lap 23. It is Mansell, Schumacher, Senna, Berger, Capelli, Alesi, Comas, Briard, Tarquini, and J.J. Leto rounding out the top 10. Of the 26 starters, 11 cars remain on the lead lap as Nigel Mansell continues to lead Grand Prix racing. One of Europe's most verdant countries, Spain is the greenhouse of the continent. Flowers are everywhere just about all year round, and certainly down on Las Ramblas, the Park Avenue and Fifth Avenue, all rolled into one here in Barcelona. Stay with us, more live coverage. Back at the Grand Prix of Spain, you're watching live here on ESPN. This is sort of a cross between a submarine race and a hockey game. You can see the cars skidding all over this racetrack as the rain continues to drizzle down like a fine mist.
Gerhard Berger hot on the tail of his teammate Senna as they go through that tight left-hand corner. Now we're back with the leader, back onto pit straight. They are, in fact, actually catching Nigel Mansell up. The gap between Mansell and Schumacher has dropped from 20 seconds to 11 seconds. And, of course, passing in the rain is always much more difficult. A, you can't see because of the spray. And B, you can't just go running anywhere on the road. As it gets wet, it gets more slippery in some places than others. So even lapping people has to be done with a certain amount of care and precision. And you have to rely on them to let you through. And, of course, racing people, the real place to overtake on this corner is down in turn one. And Gerhard Berger looks like he's thinking about doing that to his, I guess you'd have to call him team leader, Senna, as they go through the 1, 2, 3 complex.
There are a couple of teammate battles going on around the racetrack. Pierluigi Martini and J.J. Leto are still passing each other left and right. On board again with Berger, struggling with that steering wheel, trying to stay close to his teammate, looking for water for those tires.
On those very brief onboard shots, you can hear how low the V12 is revving. See, going the long way around there, taking that wide run. It's definitely less slippery out there. In fact, all that rolled up rubber and some of that other junk that gets swept out there in the dry, when it gets wet, that's what helps to give you some grip. Ooh, old Berger sliding wide. Had to lift right out of it. Look at the way Senna shot away. He understeered right to the edge of the road and lifted right out of it, and Senna, of course, quickly disappeared down the road. But Berger seems to be able to catch his teammate up again all the time.
A lot of dirt. You saw Berger wipe his hand across his brow. A lot of dirt on his wind deflector just in front of his hands. A lot of dirt on that camera lens. That's Nigel Mansell from high overhead, working lap 25 as we approach the halfway mark in this race. It is Mansell, Schumacher, Senna, Berger, Capelli, Alesi, then Comas and Briard in 8th place, the last car on the lead lap.
Schumacher in 2nd spot, now only 10 seconds behind Nigel Mansell. Ooh. There's the Lotus of Mika Hakkinen in front of him. Look a bit confusing, as they're very similar colour schemes at this stage. Schumacher right in the slipstream of Hakkinen going down the straight. Just like the good old boys in the south, when they can and they've got a long enough straight, they use the draft, just like a NASCAR car does.
Speaking of Hakkinen, you heard from his teammate Johnny Herbert admit that he just spun and stalled the car. Refreshing, candid, frank comments from a Formula One driver.
There you see those red lights aren't brake lights. They are the red safety lights they have to use in rain conditions, obviously to give the driver behind some idea of where you are in that cloud of spray.
Schumacher getting a little tail happy there.
There you see the very distinctive nose on that New Benetton. And there, of course, is the new nose on the new MP47 McLaren, about to have active suspension within the next couple of races, I suspect. I think that's probably what's helping Nigel a bit today. That looks like
one of the fun metal cars.
Tarquini, is it, or
Chiesa, I believe. Tarquini is not in the field.
Right, the left rear is damaged quite badly.
Take that back. Tarquini is out there. He just went by. But it was the white helmet of Tarquini in the car that's moving, and I believe Chiesa is out of the race. Back with Senna once again. There's Gerhard Berger.
See who's caught up that ground that he lost on that when he had that bit of a slide. It seems as if Gerhard Berger in these conditions is just slightly quicker than his teammate.
Both drivers in the new McLaren say that the program is well behind. They're very disappointed with the progress the new car is making, but they're glad to have it here in Spain where the track is very smooth. They can run a lot of downforce, a lot of rear wing. There's the Ferrari of Alesi.
Yeah, crabbing across the track there. I mean, there is some real serious sideways motoring there. This is kind of like the old style motoring where you had to drift through the corners, dry or wet, because you had tyres. Whoa, there's Maurizio Gugelmin. He's another out of the race, I would say, by the look of that left rear wheel of his.
Eddie Jordan's team with Yamaha V12 power this year, struggling to keep up the pace. They had an absolutely brilliant first year in Formula One, but that was with the dependable Ford V8 engine. Here's another.
Oh, crumbs.
Well, it wasn't quite that fast, but
big spin.
Off the turn, under power, no doubt. Just got away from him. Here come the McLaren duo again.
Up onto Mika Hakkinen.
Our leaderboard changing constantly here in Spain as you watch Senna and Berger running nose to tail. At this point, Mansell, Schumacher, Senna, Berger, Capelli, Alesi, Comas, Grouillard, Tarquini, Martini, Leto, Alboreto, Gasho, Hakkinen, and Suzuki, the only cars shown on the leaderboard. 15 cars of the 26 that started.
That, of course, is Capelli in the other Ferrari, who had such a disastrous day at Mexico, running very well today, up in 5th spot, and of course had a 5th in Brazil in the last race. So Ferrari coming at least back into the main frame again. Ooh, Berger there just going wide. Supposed to be hard on the power up this hill. I mean, this is a struggle. These guys are just twitching their way around here. This is not much fun.
Just ahead of Gerhard Berger, you can see his dashboard showing him in 3rd gear. Those LCD dashboards are absolutely spectacular. Let's get down to the pits now. Andrew Marriott.
Mauricio, what happened in that accident?
Just basically lost rear grip and I spun, that's all.
Disappointed?
Yeah, the surface is pretty bad and it just was very difficult to keep the car on the road.
Thanks, Mauricio.
Mauricio Gugelmin, whom we just saw, tagged the wall hard in the Jordan Yamaha. There is Nigel Mansell. His teammate Ricardo Patrese is out of the race. I spoke a minute ago about that dashboard on the McLarens. Virtually all the Formula One cars are using them, and they are very miraculous things. Andrew Marriott takes a look at the dashboard display of the 90s in this Track Fact.
Modern-day Grand Prix drivers like Carl Wendlinger really do have a lot of information at their disposal right here on the cockpit. Well, remember the cars of the 70s and even the 80s? They had that great big rev counter and a couple of other dials. That's all there was. But now there are something like 16 different functions on this piece of equipment here, which is called intelligent instrumentation. It has a number of different modes. At the moment, we're looking at the startup mode, and that is giving the water temperature, the oil temperature. That's always been very important, of course. It also has the oil pressure and also electrical information. If we switch now to another mode, this is actually the practice and race mode. Here we see the rev counter come into play. It actually goes up to 13,000. But it has 2 new things that racing cars never had. It has a speedometer. Racing cars never had speedometers, but now the driver can really see that he's doing 200 miles an hour. It also has in it a stopwatch, and that times each lap. It's triggered automatically. The driver doesn't have to do anything, so he knows exactly how fast his lap has been. So a great deal of different information in front of the driver, but Carl Wendlinger tells me that the thing he looks at most is the rev counter. So something, at least, hasn't changed with the modern Grand Prix car.
Back in Spain, a long train of cars coming down the start-finish straightaway. That's Mika Hakkinen in the Lotus there in yellow and green, number 11. Just behind him, Ivan Capelli in the number 28 Ferrari. The action continues. We'll give you a look at the running order. Working lap number 30 of 65 scheduled on this 2.95-mile racetrack. Nigel Mansell has been leading since the green light, looking for his 4th straight victory in 1992. Taking a dive inside the Minardi there.
The speed with which he went past Christian Fittipaldi is not exactly hanging about. I mean, he just absolutely whipped by. You can see a bit of a line there, but not much of a line. There's Michael Schumacher, the spray coming off the back tires.
Oh, he locked up the left front there, heading for that corner. It's very slick. This is the new Benetton, as we mentioned, with the nose high in the air, probably the ultimate extension of the new nose-high Formula One technology. Of course, a lot of people think Formula One noses have been in the air for a long time, but this one at least is on the race car.
Carl Wendlinger giving a bit of a twitch there. Schumacher down the inside there of Gabriele Tarquini. Whoa, and Tarquini spins. So we go off that. Okay, never mind. There's Mansell. You can see just in half a lap the amount of room he's put between himself and Christian Fittipaldi. Now we've got a clear view out the front of Nigel Mansell. This is working perfectly for him because Senna, Schumacher and Berger are right in the middle of the most horrendous traffic jam at the moment of lap traffic. Nigel has nobody in front of him, so he'll be able to squeeze out another 2 or 3 seconds over the next 2 or 3 laps, I would think, at least, because he has nobody in front of him and a clear run. The other guys are bunched up in traffic, and when it's wet like this, as I said earlier, it really does restrict your options of how and where you're going to actually pass people.
I think water is getting into our timing and scoring system as well. Before it showed 15 cars running around. Now it shows 18. There, Gerhard Berger has just got ahead of his teammate Ayrton Senna, who's coming up the inside to pass him back on the outside.
Didn't work, though.
The Dallara is the red car right with him there.
As I said, they're all jammed in this huge gaggle of traffic there. There's the 2 McLarens, the 2 Dallaras, Tarquini. Alboretto's in there somewhere too, in the footwork car.
Senna just took another shot at Berger there. Berger wouldn't let him by.
I suspect we may see Berger pull away a bit here, actually. Senna is the acknowledged rain master, there's no doubt about it. He's probably the finest rain driver of the moment, but it depends on the car setup and so on and so forth, and Berger certainly seemed to get it right this morning.
The drivers have all said this track is worse when it's only lightly raining than when it's pouring rain. Berger down to the inside of Pierluigi Martini in the Dallara. Well, I say down the inside. Martini giving him a little stick.
Martini holding him off, actually, as they climbed up that out of that sharp left-hand corner. And Senna retakes Berger.
Just ahead of them is J.J. Leto in the other Dallara, a lap down.
But of course, they're all fighting for a position as well.
Oh, going slowly. That's Eric Comas in the blue and white Ligier. Going to get in the middle of that one.
Oh, but he can't. See, he can't just drive offline because it's slippery for him as well.
Now Senna tries to accelerate past him in the Honda, but with the Renault. Comas right there. We're showing a replay now of the incident where Senna got by Berger, but they missed a better one there on the front straightaway, I think.
Yeah, Berger and Pierluigi Martini got tied up together there, going through that. That's where Schumacher spun off yesterday. Now Berger's back in front of his teammate. Here we see an onboard shot from Senna's view of what happened in front of him as they go into turn 1.
That's Leto and Senna, Leto and Berger just ahead of Senna. Inconclusive, I suppose you might say. Berger trying.
Yeah, Luigi Martini's just not giving up here, is he? Of course, he can't give up too much because he doesn't want to give up too much ground on the people that he's trying to race against, even though they're racing for 10th and 11th spot. Grand Prix racing, what it is, with the reliability factor and all the strange things that could happen, that 10th and 11th could suddenly turn into 6th and 7th or 5th and 6th. And there we see Comas going around. Is that Comas?
Yeah, I believe that's the Ligier spinning around.
Backs onto the grass. Don't let it stop as he's trying to. The wheels are still spinning, and he rejoins the fray. He's going to pull in front of these guys, which is going to give them a shot. Oh, this is what happened. He pulled in front of Senna.
Right in front of Senna and Berger. That was Schumacher that he almost took out in that spin. Schumacher running second on the track behind Mansell.
And of course, in all this shenanigans with the traffic, as you just said, Schumacher was right there too. Schumacher has now fallen back into the clutches of Senna and Berger.
This is where Senna had his big spin a year ago. Meanwhile, another driver has walked into the pit area, and he's with Andrew Marriott.
Johnny, what happened?
I don't know. Probably I have a problem in the rear suspension. When I started the race, I asked the problem. So for me, it's better to stop the race. It's better to don't crash the car. I'm very sorry because the first day I tried with the new car, new Minardi. I'm happy because I think there is a good power.
Johnny, thanks very much. We'll go back to the booth. Thank you.
Gianni Morbidelli, whose father is renowned for his motorbikes, had great success in the World Championship a few years ago, and he is now designing transmissions for the Minardi team. Here's Nigel Mansell.
As you say, that rooster tail getting bigger and bigger now. The front wheels there kicking up a fair old spray. This is that tight left-hander called La Cascia, cash box. And this long right-hander is called the Bank de Sabadell. I guess these are people that put dough into this track. There you see, these are those last two quick right-handers we were talking about at the beginning of the show. Normally taken in 5th gear. This one here almost flat in 5th, and then they were changed up to 6th. Nigel going through this afternoon in 4th, then 5th, then 6th. You can see the rooster tail. Good view of the track from up here.
The problem seems to be it is very wet in some places and not very wet at all in others. A dramatic Grand Prix of Spain continues live here on ESPN. Nigel Mansell leads by nearly 18 seconds over Michael Schumacher. La Boqueria, one of the major produce markets in downtown Barcelona. Many of the city's residents come down under the flag of the new European community. Check out some of the finest agricultural products in the world. There is also fish and meat. Very much like other major cities throughout the world, where all races come together to share in food. From high above the Circuito de Catalunya in Barcelona, capital of the Spanish province of Catalonia. Bob Varsha and David Hobbs with you. Nigel Mansell leads, working lap number 35 of 65 scheduled. We are past halfway. Michael Schumacher runs 13.6 seconds behind. Then Ayrton Senna and Gerhard Berger. And Ivan Capelli in 5th position. His 6th is the Ferrari of Jean Alesi, who made a quick pit stop for a new set of wet weather tires. That is Capelli right there in the red Ferrari.
Capelli, who was just overtaking Carl Wendlinger in that turquoise-colored car, which is the March, pretty well totally unsponsored. Went very, very well. There it is again. Went very, very well again in practice and qualifying in the dry. This car seems to like smooth circuits, which this is, but obviously doesn't like the rain so much. Back with our leader, Nigel Mansell, going around that long left-hander.
I mentioned the tire situation. Alesi has already changed his wets. Let's get down to Andrew Marriott for more on the race rubber.
Yes, so you see Goodyear engineers are just checking these tyres. I'm touching here the tyre which has just come off Jean Alesi's car. They're measuring the wear, and it does seem it was a safety measure because there doesn't seem to be that much wear on these wets. So Jean Alesi coming in to change to another set of wets, but these tyres look good to me. Back to you in the booth.
He may have had a little vibration, maybe thought he threw a wheel weight or something and wanted a new set. Those are a new rain tire developed by Goodyear Tire Company, the sole supplier to tires in Formula One, brought out for this race a year ago and only used twice, here and in Adelaide, Australia, where he had the monsoon to wind up last season. They are very distinctive tires, an interesting tread pattern. It takes 4 separate molds to do the 4 tires, left front, left rear, and right rear. Oh, one of the Delares, that's Martini getting sideways.
Yeah. You can see a bit of a dry line developing there on that corner.
Down the front straightaway.
Christian Fittipaldi about to be lapped. Right behind him is Gabriele Tarquini. Behind him is Michele Alboreto, going very well in the footwork again. Got a point just the last race in Brazil. There's Pierluigi Martini. And there's Ivan Capelli in the Ferrari.
That point picked up by Michele Alboreto in Brazil was the first for the footwork team under Jackie Oliver in 2 seasons, and it will probably get them out of the pre-qualifying sessions at 8 o'clock on Friday morning when we change over at half season.
Oh, I think we missed something there again. They did a camera cut. There seemed to be an awful traffic jam going into that chicane. In fact, Alborelo's lying 8th today, so with another 30 laps to go, I mean, he could still end up in the points yet again. That, of course, now got the footwork car now got the Honda V10 that Honda McLaren used 2 years ago. There you see that little dry line just starting up.
And on that line is the race leader, Nigel Mansell. Down onto the start-finish straightaway and up through the gearbox.
Still lapping in about 1 minute 44, 1 minute 45 seconds. A cool 25 seconds slower than qualifying.
Let's listen. Keep in mind, the driver can't see much better than you can before the film changes on the onboard camera there.
Tiptoeing through these long corners, downhill now. This is where we saw him swoop by Fittipaldi a couple of laps ago.
In case you're wondering about the Canadian Grand Prix a year ago where Nigel let the revs get too low and the engine died on him, the engineers for the Williams team say they have solved that problem and he can run comfortably at low revs now.
Of course, the last thing you want to do is change down and get more revs because that just gives you too much oomph on pickup. And you need to hear, you can hear how he lets the engine drop. Ooh, gives it a bit of a tweak there. Get back in line, you. Going wide, see around the outside here, back on the non-slippery bit. Has to take the apex there.
Slippery right there. Amazing how just the slightest little twist of the steering wheel gets the car back under control. There is the second place machine of Schumacher. There is the third place machine of Ayrton Senna.
Senna losing ground again to Schumacher. He had him right in his sights there when they got caught up in that huge traffic jam, but now he's 8 seconds behind again. So it would certainly seem that Schumacher has his measure, as of course does Mansell, who is 13.5 seconds in front of Schumacher.
Ayrton Senna across the start-finish line, about 145 miles an hour at that point, getting up a little bit faster over this brow, maybe 170 or 80 in this wet, before they come back down. There's Gerhard Berger.
Right now, of course, Senna will be, I guess, at least satisfied with his third spot. Although, oh, there we see Bertrand Gachot.
Gachot had a huge crash in testing for this race with the LaRousse team, now sponsored by the Venturi car makers in France. Oh, Gerhard Berger, gosh, sideways
big
everywhere.
Switch there. Senna, just to make sure all his bets are covered. They had a very big test just a week ago in Imola, which will be the next site of the next Grand Prix. And whilst there, he was spotted just visiting Frank Williams, just chatting up, you know, old time's sake and all that sort of thing. Just in case he has to move on at the end of the year. Everybody's contract's up for renewal at the end of this year. So look for a lot of driver changes. And there's some smoke. Is that? No, just a cloudy lens.
There is Ayrton Senna. Holding down third place. He has opened up 6.5 seconds over his teammate Gerhard Berger in fourth. By now, the story about the Williams domination of this 1992 season is fairly old news. I think everyone knows Nigel Mansell has won the first 3 races. Ricardo Patrese finished second in the first 3. We've already heard from Nigel Mansell about why he thinks you cannot regulate technology in Formula One to assure yourself that one team does not dominate. We asked some of the other drivers for their impressions. Of course, you might expect they might feel a little differently about it than Nigel did. Here's what they had to say about keeping teams from dominating.
Maybe say the fuel. If everybody got the same, well, not any special qualifying fuels, everybody got the same fuel, I would say that would be the very big improvement in Formula One, and that also puts money down in the budget, and it's better for everybody.
It's really difficult to stop the development work on the cars anyway, but it's just if you reduce the testing, I think they would slow down the good teams, because we are not able to do as much testing, and that's why we are much slower.
I think Formula One is a world that freedom is involved, and people that spend most money and are clever to do their job, they are more competitive, and that's the way it is.
Maybe send some robbers inside the team, steal all the cars, and then they won't go to the races anymore.
Well, there you have it. I don't think that idea will fly. I think the fuel and the testing, that mightn't be a bad idea. I think if we went back to a more normal sort of fuel instead of the exotic sort of fuels they use at the moment, both for qualifying and the race, I can't see that would be too detrimental to either the fuel companies or the engine manufacturers. And certainly if they cut down on testing would help the smaller people.
Those are just a few of the items under discussion, as well as new qualifying rules and, perish the thought, the possibility of a pace car in Formula One. We'll be back for more live from Spain. We are back high overhead in Barcelona, Spain, looking down on the Williams with Renault V10 power driven by Nigel Mansell, making his way around in the lead as he has since the beginning of this race. We're well past the halfway mark. Let's take a look at our Suzuki motorcycle race recap. The leader, Nigel Mansell, has led all of the laps run thus far, 65 scheduled in this race. There have been no lead changes, although there's been an awful lot of passing behind first place. The gap, 14.8 seconds, back to the second place car of Michael Schumacher, the Benetton. Ayrton Senna runs third, Gerhard Berger fourth, then Ivan Capelli, Jean Alesi, Gabriele Tarquini in the 7th spot. Then Michele Alboreto, JJ Leto, Pierluigi Martini, Mika Hakkinen, Aguri Suzuki, Eric Comas. And I believe those are the 13 cars still running at this point. Carl Wendlinger in the March, still shown on the timing and scoring board, but he is more than 2 laps down, and we haven't seen him go by in a while. Now more from the pit lane, and Andrew Marriott.
Yes, Bob, this Williams pit crew really is laid back. They've just had one of the hospitality people walk round with a basket of food and fruit, and they're just dipping into that. Meanwhile, I'm standing by a spare set of wet weather tyres for Nigel Mansell. I just grabbed a word with Peter Windsor, the team manager. He says he doesn't think they'll be needed. He doesn't know why Jean Alesi changed, so no problems out there. And I do believe it is raining harder now. You can see it coming down on me. Back to you in the booth.
All right, and on my coat as well.
It's the coat you loaned Andrew, huh? That'll teach you.
If old Nige should win this race, it'll be the...
Hakkinen going around on the point of the Ferrari.
That's Capelli.
That's Alesi.
Oh, Alesi, I'm sorry.
Skewered he was.
So that's the second time Alesi's been at. Maybe why he changed that first tyre, of course. Because he had his rear wheel nudged by Berger. That's probably why he changed. And now he's been nudged again. Hopefully we'll see a replay. Here we see it.
I think he's more nudger than nudgy. That's Mika Hakkinen. Kind of closed the door. Almost hooked wheels.
Yeah. Both spun. Hakkinen looks like he stalled it.
Actually, it looks like Alesi probably slid into it.
I think Alesi slid wide, exactly. And that's just one of those things. I think Hakkinen gave him the room, or tried to give him the room. And Alesi took it and unfortunately slid wide. Just one of those things that can happen on a day like today. I mean, it's just...
Exactly the point. I don't think we can be too quick to blame anybody for getting off their racing line today. These conditions are just diabolical. And yet it has never really come down hard. It just keeps misting down, building up a lot in places like this, but that may be partly drainage too. Nigel Mansell.
Alesi thinking quickly there, dipping the clutch on that car of his and keeping it going, because with that semi-automatic gearbox, they don't use the clutch during the race much. And I guess it's one of those things that you could forget to do, like driving an automatic and you get back into stick shift and go hunting up to the traffic light, wondering what's wrong with the thing. And he managed to keep the engine going. It looks as if Hakkinen did not. That is Schumacher.
Mr. Schumacher in second place.
14.5 seconds behind the leader. As you can see from the spray, what Andrew Marriott said is true. It obviously is raining a lot more. There's a much bigger rooster tail now than we've seen so far. And as you've said, it's certainly worse in some places than others. Quite a dry line there going onto the pit straight. Going onto the pit straight now.
Michael Schumacher making his way around, probably very pleased to be in second position. That's the best performance he has had in his very brief Grand Prix career thus far.
Alberto Senna catching him up now. Only 3.9 seconds behind. He was 8 seconds behind. Senna would dearly love to have that second spot.
Ayrton Senna came under fire from Schumacher for the way he held up the train in Brazil. Schumacher has also had unkind things to say about this man, race leader Nigel Mansell, in the past year. This weekend, it was made clear to the young Mr. Schumacher that Mansell and Senna did not take to his comments very lightly, not very impressed with a young hot shoe telling a world champion and a 24 Grand Prix winner how to drive a race car. Right. So Schumacher admitted that maybe he was a little bit hasty, and he's going to mind his P's and Q's a little bit more in the future. There's very much a pecking order in Formula One.
Like any other sport, for that matter, of course, or any other business.
Working lap number 43 of 65.
Senna now putting his mind to it, as only Ayrton Senna can do. We've already said that Nigel is still struggling to win his first Grand Prix.
There's the gap from
championship. And Senna, of course, is a three-time world champion already in considerably less starts. This will be his 129th today. And it'll be Nigel's 169th start today.
Senna closing in on Schumacher. That could be an interesting battle.
Yes, we'll see what young Schumacher says when, when the world champion's trying to get by. Whoa! And Eric Comas gets the thing all crossed up there. He obviously got it off the grass from that last spin that we saw.
This is Schumacher just behind him, and just behind Schumacher is Senna closing down the gap. 3.8 seconds, has stabilized just a little bit. Ayrton Senna and Nigel Mansell, who have locked horns before in the Grand Prix of Spain, one of the great finishes in Formula One a few years ago back in Jerez de la Frontera. Today, though, it is all Mansell. Ooh, low revs there on a straightaway. We may not be listening to Senna's car. We have 4 sources of onboard audio. I'm not sure whether this is Senna's.
It doesn't sound like.
Doesn't sound like it's the right car, no.
No, it's not.
I should say we have 3, since Mr. Patrese is now out. Our onboard cameras and microphones are in the McLarens and the Williams cars.
We're obviously listening to Nigel Mansell whilst watching Senna at the moment, by the look of things, but
not the sound of a 12, for sure.
Senna struggling there to keep the mighty machine glued to the asphalt. Schumacher in front. Oh, in front of him is Eric Comas, who's had a couple of wild moments already. Slashes by on the inside, down to this tight left-hander here.
Both cars going very wide. Senna ahead of Comas. Umbrellas lining the hillsides here in the valley that contains the city of Barcelona, not far from the snow-capped Pyrenees. Probably more snow falling up there today. Here comes Ayrton Senna in the red and white McLaren Honda. There's some question about the future of Honda in Formula One racing. Ron Dennis, team manager for McLaren, says the decision is yet to be taken whether Honda will be back as early as next year. And while we're on the subject of Honda, while we watch Mr. Schumacher and now Mr. Mansell, we should point out that Ronnie Bucknam, an American who was the first Grand Prix driver for Honda going all the way back to 1964, passed away last week of complications of diabetes. I believe he's in California. Ronnie Bucknam dead at age 57, and that marks the passing of an important milestone in Formula One. The rooster tail behind one of the young stars in Formula One. Umbrellas come in very, very handy today in Barcelona. We'll be back with more live from the Grand Prix of Spain. Out of the fog comes the number 28 Ferrari of Ivan Capelli. Just behind him, his teammate on fresher wet weather tires, Jean Alesi. That juggles the order. Alesi will be 5th and Ivan Capelli 6th. As Mansell leads Schumacher, Senna, and Berger ahead of them. Behind this battle, a long way back, Michele Alboreto in the footwork runs in a steady 7th position. Here's a look at that pass.
Jean Alesi really having a very eventful afternoon. He's run into somebody once, he's been run into once, changed tires once, and is now pulling his way back up through the field. In fact, he's doing the fastest laps at the moment.
Being caught up by Nigel Mansell, who has the fast lap of the race. There's Michael Schumacher. We've talked about him at a great length today. We took a closer look at the hottest driver in Formula One, journeying to his home in Germany. Here's a closer look at the new star in the sport. Michael Schumacher carries great expectations around the Formula One garages. The best German talent since the tragic Stefan Bellof, they say. Perhaps the best German ever. Perhaps the next Senna. His remarkable career began in the tiny village of Kerpen, near Cologne, where he still lives with his family. Despite tasting the material success of Grand Prix stardom at just 23 years of age, Schumacher's life has hardly changed at all. Nor has that of his family. His parents still own the local restaurant, where Michael's mother supervises the kitchen and bar, while out in back, Father Rolf still tinkers with the karts in which he gave his son his start.
My father paid this go-kart really till I was 10 years old, and then we need to stop because my father went out of money, and he said, "Okay, guy, we need to stop. We don't have any more money." I was 11, I think, when I found my first sponsor, and from there on I had always sponsors to do racing.
Little Michael immediately returned the confidence of those sponsors with a quartet of junior and senior kart championships. Today, Father Rolf still runs the local karting track, where his famous son often stops by to sharpen his skills and give the local hot shoes a glimpse of the flair and car control that has made Michael the toast of the Grand Prix community. Keep in mind, these are not the kind of go-karts many of us grew up with on the side streets and backlots of America. These are the breeding grounds of future racing champions, and Michael Schumacher has always stayed true to his roots. One element missing in Schumacher's life today is a girlfriend. For companionship, he turns to his Yorkshire Terrier, Little Sandy.
It's a part of the family, and you really can relax as well because it don't give you some pressure as doing, for example, childs. You know, they're always crying, and you can't say, okay, now you be quiet and you go in a corner and then sleep a bit. A child wouldn't do this, and I'm quite happy about my dog. If I have time, then we spend the time together, and I like him.
Spoken like a true 23-year-old bachelor with a world ahead of him.
Yeah, I'll say. And right ahead of him now is Nigel Mansell. He has closed the gap to 7 seconds. At one stage, nearly 20 behind. Now only 7 seconds behind. And 5 seconds behind Schumacher. Still lurks Ayrton Senna, looking for his first victory of 1992.
As you can see from that sheen on the racetrack, the rain is falling in earnest now, and it is very wet virtually all the way around this 2.95-mile circuit.
Lap times have dropped just a little bit. They're down into the 1:45 range now. On the other hand, in some ways, it's even a bit easier. If it gets much wetter than this, it's going to start to get dangerous when the water runs across. Look at these two Dallaras, absolutely in lock. Oh, that's a Ferrari. That's John Alesi about to overtake. I guess that's J.J. Leto.
Well, we won't see it, unfortunately. Michael Schumacher circulates now. The gap is just 5.5 seconds between the leader, Nigel Mansell, second place, Michael Schumacher. This Benetton car is really coming through, and one of its designers is standing by in the pit lane with Andrew Marriott.
It's very pleasing. Everything appears to be functioning well, and we could be in for a fairly exciting finish.
What about this guy Schumacher? He's a fantastic driver, isn't he?
Oh, yes, he's superb. I mean, he's showing what he can do out there this afternoon.
How nervous are you at a point like this, close to the end of the race?
Well, I must admit, standing in the pit there with nothing to do, you do tend to get fairly nervous, but, you know, we'll wait and see.
Thanks, Rory. Back to you in the booth.
That was Rory Byrne, who is technically the aerodynamicist for the Benetton team. This car technically designed by Ross Brawn, but with much input from Rory Byrne, who has had a long and illustrious history in open-wheel Formula racing.
Rory Byrne, as you can hear, is a South African. Ayrton Senna, they're really getting tweaked up now. Now he can smell blood. He's only 9 seconds behind the leader. And, of course, there is the gap between himself and Schumacher. Schumacher about to pass one of the footwork cars. Here we see it again in slow-mo. Look at that. I mean, he has got the car so out of shape. And he holds it, flicks it. That's my boy.
Senna pressing on. The Rainmeister, who won his first Grand Prix victory in a downpour in Portugal back in 1985, won his second race in a downpour as well. And it is about to become that here.
The rain in Spain staying resolutely away from the plane, but not doing Senna any harm at all at the moment. Coming up to lap Wendlinger there, that is Nigel Mansell. Could be held up by Wendlinger here.
Update on the lead gap. Mansell to Schumacher down to 4.67 seconds, and there are still lots of laps to go. We're working lap number 50. 15 laps remain next time by for that man, Nigel Mansell, the race leader.
Obviously got past Carl Wendlinger. There's Carl Wendlinger. There's Michael Schumacher. And there's Ayrton Senna. This could turn, as Rory Byrne has just said, this could turn into a pretty spectacular finish.
Rory Byrne from South Africa, as is another great Formula One designer, Gordon Murray, presently at work on the new McLaren road car, set to debut in another year or two. David Hobbs will no doubt own one.
Set to debut in Monte Carlo. To the press, absolutely. I have my name on the order book. If anybody has any spare cash and would like to buy it, they're very welcome to it. Woo! Everybody there starting to use theirs. Michele Alboreto in the footwork, running in 7th spot.
John Alesi coming down. Contrails flying off the rear wing, and he gets sideways, and I thought he was going off. Whoa.
John Alesi, another one of these young lions. We haven't heard much of him. He had a very lackluster year last year, which was really the Ferrari's fault. But if you remember, he burst on the scene like Schumacher, coming 4th in the French Grand Prix in his debut year, debut Grand Prix. So Jean Alesi, another young, absolute tiger driver.
Look at how wet it is. Here's another look at what happened at the end of that 180-mile-an-hour front straightaway.
Hard on the brakes, turns into the corner. Probably just got the brakes on a little bit, got it out. Then actually he got help there by getting onto more water rather than less. I think it's probably less slippery out there. But gathered it all up. Nigel Mansell.
Oh man, in full flow at this point. Look at the rooster tails. It is really wet out there now. 15 laps remain for Nigel Mansell, who has won 3 races in a row twice in his career. If he can do it today, it'll be the first time he has won 4 straight.
And only a very few other people have ever won 4 victories. Senna being one of them, who's won 4 victories twice in a row. 5 victories, only 2 people have ever done it. Jack Brabham and Jimmy Clark.
Engine popping. Nigel Mansell makes his way around. Those tires have been on through a lot of dry. One has to wonder whether they're still working well in the wet. Now he's setting up an absolute wake out there. Of course, there is another important event upcoming in Barcelona. This is the Central Stadium in the Olympic Park, the Olympic Ring on Mount Juic, overlooking the city. Built originally for the 1936 Olympics, but because of the Spanish Civil War, that game's moved on to Berlin, Germany, of all places. It will soon host the opening ceremonies and much of the track and field and soccer action. There is the St. Jordi Gym that will also have handball, volleyball, and indoor sports. That will be the Olympic torch. We'll be back. Live in Barcelona, Spain. You're looking at the SS McLaren Honda. Ayrton Senna, skipper. The rain is just pouring down here in Spain now. There's Nigel Mansell, the race leader, working lap number 53, meaning there will be 12 to go this time around. The gap over Michael Schumacher has now expanded again to 9.1 seconds. Senna still trying to close in on Schumacher. Let's get a report on Nigel Mansell's situation now with Andrew Marriott.
Oh, yes, Bob, I just ducked down into the pits a couple of seconds ago and talked to Frank Williams, albeit briefly, and he said they don't have any problems. Nigel says everything's fine. You can obviously hear Nigel on the radio, so they're just taking it fairly coolly. And I think you see Nigel Mansell winning this one, but famous last words, perhaps. Back to you.
Nigel responded very well to the threat of Schumacher and Senna closing in on him. And Senna himself has dropped back from Schumacher a bit. He's nearly 8 seconds behind Schumacher, who's nearly 10 seconds behind Nigel. So it doesn't look as if we are going to see such a great close finish that we'd hoped to, but all of these drivers will be very happy with the results they get. Nigel, particularly, his first quartet of wins. Schumacher will really establish himself as second in the championship, and Senna will basically hang in there with some points, which at the moment is basically all he can expect to get until they get this car, the MP47, fully developed. It has active suspension to come, like the Williams, and they have a lot more work to do on their gearbox. And they say that the Honda engine is giving away horsepower to the Renault V10. And I've no doubt the Honda engineers will be working flat out on that as well. So lots of work to do for the rest of the year to keep up with this guy here, Nigel Mansell, having the best year he's ever had.
The ongoing cycle of developing technology never changes in Formula One. There's Gerhard Berger going underneath Mika Hakkinen in the Lotus. Berger running in 4th position. Hakkinen has been lapped twice, running 2 laps down now. You can bet Hakkinen and teammate Johnny Herbert, who's out of the race, are looking forward to the introduction of the new Lotus, which should be ready for our next race 2 weeks from now in Imola, Italy.
I did think that the weather conditions today would equalize things, and I thought that the Lotus with Herbert and Hakkinen might go quite a bit better in the rain than you would expect to do in the dry. Gerhard Berger using, one could say, all of the road and a little bit more. Nigel Mansell looking very relaxed from here.
Relaxed indeed, with a possible 4th victory in a row in 1992. He is a former winner of this race, the defending champion, in fact. There's a look at past winners of the Grand Prix, held in Jerez, down in the south part of Spain, when Senna, Mansell, Prost, Senna again, and Prost again won it through 1990. Then in 1991, it came here to this new circuit, and Nigel Mansell won the opening race.
If he wins this, that'll give him 40 points. Ayrton Senna will have 8.
Stranger things have happened. Just a year ago, Nigel got close to Senna. Ooh, Nigel getting sideways there. It is really getting difficult. There have been great races on this track, great races at Jerez as well. In fact, Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna figured in the second closest Formula One race of all time. You saw it here on ESPN with Larry Nuber and Jackie Stewart. Let's look.
Of course, coming up on turn 16, Nigel just does not have enough time.
Well, wait a minute. There's a lot of power in that Honda. He's going to weave down the straight. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. My God, did he do it? We can't tell. We can't tell. It didn't look like it to me. It looks like Ayrton Senna has won the Gio Pepe Spanish Grand Prix.
A blast from the past there, how things have changed. Nigel Mansell back in the Williams. The Honda is in the car of Ayrton Senna. Of course, he was in a Lotus back then.
A turbocharged car, which gave, of course, terrific horsepower. Some of the most exciting racing ever from a driver's point of view, with the staggering output of those turbocharged engines. But now, these normally aspirated 3.5-litre engines, no slouches, all giving round about 750 or a bit more out of 3.5 litres normally aspirated. A truly incredible amount of horsepower. Down to this tight rising left-hander, going uphill now, about to flick right.
We want to remind you, coming up later today, more live motorsports here on ESPN from Talladega Superspeedway. Talladega, Alabama, the fastest stock car track in the world. 1991 champion Harry Gant will lead the way in the Winston 500 at 2 p.m. Eastern Time later today here on ESPN. Dale Earnhardt getting stronger. Of course, Fords have had their way all year long in stock car racing. The Talladega race should be a good one. Nigel Mansell, no problem finding a wet place on the racetrack to keep those Goodyear tires cool and operating. He leads Michael Schumacher by 14.9 seconds with 11 laps to go in the race. We'll be back with more from Spain. We are back live in Spain, where 10 laps remain in the Grand Prix of Spain. Bob Varsha, David Hobbs, and Andrew Marriott, glad to have you with us. Some of these drivers probably not too glad to be out there in monsoon conditions. We thought for a while the day held the promise of a dry race, but it hasn't been that way. One thing that has not changed as you watch Ayrton Senna splashing around out there in third place. Nigel Mansell is on track with barely 9 laps to go for a possible 4th straight victory to open the 1992 Grand Prix season. His teammate Riccardo Patrese is out of the race, having spun and crashed, along with more than half the field. Right now, we show unofficially 13 cars still running. They are Mansell, Schumacher, Senna, Berger, Alesi, Capelli, Alboreto, Tarquini, J.J. Leto, Pierluigi Martini, Aguri Suzuki, Mika Hakkinen, Eric Comas, and I believe Carl Wendlinger is still going around out there. Martini
Mansell
about
going around Pierluigi Martini and the Dallara Ferrari. Ooh, there you can see the efficacy of those tail lights that these cars have to have. But the spray is so bad that even... Ooh, where has he gone to? Lost track of him. There he is.
Where's he gone? Where's the road gone?
Exactly. Racing in the rain is no joke. It really isn't. It's extremely hazardous.
And yet they do it in cars weighing just over 1,100 pounds with some 700, perhaps 750 horsepower. About 10 or 11 times the power-to-weight ratio of your average Econobox.
Whoa! Senna's off.
Senna or Berger. Senna it is. Off and on. Could he have kept the motor running?
Looks
Indeed
like
he could have. What a spin. Yikes.
That's why he's three-time world champion.
Too bad we don't have EKGs on some of these guys. I bet Senna's old ticker is doing a bit of a drum beat.
Ooh, coming down the hill there, spins around, gets on the grass, just touches the gravel. Any bits of bodywork going to come off here? Be a miracle if they don't.
He's got it in reverse, does he?
I don't think so.
I couldn't have put it in reverse. I can't imagine.
I always see it again. Looking away. Just missed the edge of that curve, which is a bit of luck.
Yeah, just coasting backwards right now. Smart, he got right on that clutch.
He got right on the clutch, letting the wheels drift. Jams it back into first and off. Now, does the nose look bent to you, or is that just me?
We'll get a good look at it coming down the straightaway here as soon as he emerges from the fog.
So that'll drop him back a little bit. He's still in third spot, though.
Looks pretty symmetrical to me.
Yeah, I thought maybe to push sideways a bit.
Doesn't even look as though he's damaged those underwing winglets, as they're called, that channel the air under the...
Vital piece of equipment on these cars.
Wow. What a piece of driving.
That's what he needs Nigel to do, of course, to get himself back in the frame. Nigel now 14 seconds in front of Schumacher.
Well, give credit to Nigel. He has not put a wheel wrong all day that I can recall.
No.
There is Michael Schumacher making his way around 13.7 seconds at last report behind Nigel Mansell. Senna 17.6 seconds behind Schumacher now, and Andrew Marriott has more on the McLaren drivers.
Yes, well, I'm down here in the McLaren pit. Here are some new noses, but I don't believe there is a problem. Everyone in the pits here from McLaren is pretty relaxed about it. So, big spin from Senna, but he's still in third place. Back to you, Bob.
Certainly helps to have that big gap. Nigel Mansell continues to struggle around, lapping.
One of the footwork cars, was that? Was that Suzuki or was that Alboreto? Probably Alboreto. Just stay inside, Andrew. Don't get that coat too wet now.
Nigel Mansell is leading. We have 8 laps remaining in the Grand Prix of Spain. Make that 7 laps now that Nigel has crossed the start-finish line. We'll be back with more live from Spain. Back live, looking down on Nigel Mansell, making his way around through a torrential rainstorm here at the Circuito de Catalunya. Mansell looking for his 2nd straight victory, the only victor in Grand Prix racing on this track in its 2-year existence. Don't mean to hex him there. He may be an undefeated champion on this track.
Just had a huge wobble there as we came back from commercial. The road now very, very, very wet. So aquaplaning becomes a major part of the equation in wet weather driving now. Although this new Goodyear tyre certainly seems to deal with deep water exceptionally well.
There is Gerhard Berger, I believe, being pressed by Jean Alesi. There's Carl Wendlinger? No,
looks like John Alesi going down the inside of Berger.
Yes.
Which would take a position away from Berger.
That would make Alesi 4th and Berger 5th.
Alesi really excelling. He was like this yesterday afternoon, if you remember. Yesterday morning it was like this, and yesterday afternoon in qualifying. And hardly anybody bothered in the qualifying, of course, because they weren't about to improve on their Friday time. And here we see it again. And he was quickest in both sessions yesterday, and boy, he is running like Jack the Bear this afternoon.
That was not Carl Wendlinger on the march, by the way. That was Paul Belmondo.
Oh, of course. I'd forgotten about him.
Easy to do. One more look now at Alesi going underneath.
Well, I tell you what, Alesi's last lap was a 149.4. Nigel's was a 150.7. Schumacher's was a 55, and Senna's was a 51. So that gives you some idea of just how quick Alesi is going in these atrocious conditions.
Nigel Mansell set fast lap of the race thus far at 142.5. That was way back on lap 10 where we had no rain at all compared to what we've got now.
If they were to do a fastest lap right now in these conditions, Lacey would have it by about 3 seconds.
Just an example of Williams' domination. Here's a look. The last 3 races won by Nigel Mansell. The last 4 poles won by Nigel. 3 1-2 finishes. Will not get one of those today as Patrese is out of the race. 2 fastest race laps have belonged to Nigel. He has the fastest lap in the race thus far here. And for the team, a perfect score coming in the Constructors' Championship, a full 48 points. They will not get a perfect score today because of Patrese dropping out. We have 5 laps to go for this man at the head of the field, Nigel Mansell.
I did say a few moments ago that this would consolidate Schumacher's second position. Of course, Patrese is lying second in the championship, but this will, in fact, put Schumacher to within 1 point of Riccardo Patrese in the World Championship standings. He'll have 17 to Patrese's 18. And a long way to go in the World Championship yet. It's not over yet. There's a long way to go. If the Ferrari could have a few more wet races, it would obviously be in there with a good chance.
One of the most understated talents in all of Formula One is standing by now with Andrew Murray out in the pits.
Yeah, Gabriele Tarquini, you've got a flat tire. What happened?
I spun in the last lap because it's very impossible to drive. I had Alboreto behind me. It's very impossible to drive with another car in front, and it's very difficult. I spun.
Bad luck. Back to you in the booth.
There's a guy who deserves a ride in a good car someday. Gabriele Tarquini. You gotta love a guy who puts a spider web on his helmet because he likes the Spider-Man comic book figure. Tarquini is.
I gotta love him. We'll give him a very wide berth on the racetrack.
Coming through the fog, closing up behind Pierluigi Martini in the red number 22 in the foreground. Here's Michael Schumacher. No doubt, Yorkie Sandy watching back home in Germany.
Schumacher seems to have decided to accept second place. He's now 22 seconds behind Nigel and is running 4 seconds a lap slower than Nigel in these atrocious conditions. Obviously decided he couldn't press on and catch up and pass him, so I think he's settling for a safe second spot, which of course has been helped by Senna having that spin and losing himself about 10 seconds in the process. Pretty good actually to have a spin at that sort of speed in these conditions and A, get it back on the road at all, and B, only lose about 10 seconds in the process.
Don't forget live baseball coming your way here on ESPN tonight. Sunday night baseball. Pittsburgh and Houston, 8 p.m. live Eastern time. And then tomorrow night, Monday night baseball, the New York Mets at the Houston Astros. The viewers in the New York and Houston areas will see the Milwaukee Brewers against the Chicago White Sox. That game at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And at 8:30, our feature presentation on Monday night baseball, the Mets and the Astros.
The Brewers, that's my boys.
I wonder how my Atlanta Braves are doing this weekend.
Rubbish.
The baseball scores are always 2 days late over here. You think in this day of electronic information disbursement, I could find out how the Braves are doing. The rain continues to fall, working lap number 62. 3 laps will remain when we return. Ayrton Senna will not get a victory, it would appear, but this man just might. The rain in Spain continues to fall in buckets. On the Grand Prix of Spain here in Barcelona, you saw Ayrton Senna. There is Nigel Mansell, who is working 3 laps to go in this 65-lap race. Next time around, there will be 2 to go, but the action is all behind him. Michael Schumacher trails Senna by 27 seconds. Then Ayrton Senna, whom we saw just as we came back from commercial, who was being reeled in gobs by Jean Alesi in the Ferrari.
John Alesi's last lap was a cool 6 seconds quicker than Senna's, and he's only 7 seconds behind going into the lap.
Well, there's Senna coming up on the floor.
He's already passed him.
That's that's Capelli, I believe. Senna coming up to put a lap on Capelli, but meanwhile...
Make it even worse then.
Yeah, that teammate can slow things down a little bit, as you see Senna getting sideways on Capelli's mist. Meanwhile, Jean Alesi is coming along like a freight train. Here's Nigel. He has crossed the start-finish line. 2 laps to go in this race.
Appearing out of the murk. You called it earlier, the USS McLaren Williams. Oh,
Senna's off. Senna has spun off and clouded something. That right rear wheel is all bent.
Now that does put a severe bend in Senna's World Championship aspirations. He probably would have done better to settle for 4th rather than that. Anything rather than that.
On board with Senna. You see him just spin it away. The wall looms up.
Boom.
And he clouts it. The defending world champion. Looks like he took a battering on the shoulder.
Probably hit his elbow.
There's a look from outside. This is the uphill left-hander. Well, no problem there. Frank Williams right there has no doubt seen that. Doesn't really take much heat off Nigel Mansell, but look out the front of Nigel's car.
Boy, they'll be glad when this one's over.
When Senna goes off, you know things are getting sticky. And give credit to this guy. Nigel Mansell has not put a wheel wrong, I believe, since this season began. Showing incredible consistency as well as outright speed.
He's had a couple of offs this year, and he's chosen the time extremely well. He went off in practice in Brazil, and he went off in practice on Saturday. So he's doing his depth testing at the right time.
I seem to recall you saying that a year ago about Senna and McLaren. It just never seems to befall them. As Nigel Mansell begins his last lap, whenever Senna and Berger went off, it always happened to be in a practice or qualifying, never in the race.
And now the tables have turned and it's the other way around.
Well, Ayrton Senna has Jean Alesi just 1 point behind him in the tables as you watch Frank Williams. So he will no doubt give up 5th place in the championship to Alesi. In fact, Capelli may get by him as well. If Capelli scores 2 points today, as he no doubt will, he's in a 2-point position right now. He will tie Senna. There's Schumacher going inside of Christian Fittipaldi, I believe.
Yep. And there's our leader, Nigel Mansell.
The red 5. On 4 continents, he has won Formula One races. Nigel said he has never been so fit. He has never been so close to the limit, and he has never felt so much in control in his career. This man has delivered him a car that is an absolute killer. It will be a few more races. It will be at least 2 weeks before we will learn whether McLaren and Benetton can get on terms with the Williams crew, including the designer, second from the left, Patrick Head. We'll be coming to you from Imola in 2 weeks' time. That great Enzo and Dino Ferrari track. The Grand Prix of San Marino here on ESPN. Ricardo Patrese will not make it a Williams 1-2, but Nigel Mansell will give Frank Williams his 4th race victory of the year, it would appear.
Coming up to the last 2 right-handers now. His high-speed double right. That's where Senna had his first little spin this afternoon.
One more turn. He can shut it off and coast at this point. 27 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. Nigel Mansell takes his 25th career Grand Prix victory. Patrick Head and the boys congratulating themselves. In the blue are the Williams team. In the yellow are the Renault engineers. Michael Schumacher will come through to finish second. Behind him, unofficially, Jean Alesi. There is your winner, Nigel Mansell. In the years following World War II, heavy industry along the coast gave Barcelona the reputation as the city that turned its back on the sea. All that has changed, and Barcelona is now the city that has returned to the sea. ESPN coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of Spain from Barcelona has been brought to you by Budweiser, the king of beers. With that clean, crisp, cold taste, nothing beats a Bud. Well, as you can see, not only has Barcelona returned to the sea, but the sea has come to Barcelona in a towering rainstorm. Not unexpected, but not entirely welcome either. Nigel Mansell has taken his 4th victory. Here's a replay as he crosses the finish line. We'll give you a look at our unofficial results. Nigel Mansell over Michael Schumacher. Jean Alesi, after Ayrton Senna went off, moves up to third place. Gerhard Berger brings the Sol McLaren home in fourth. Michele Alboreto is fifth. And in the sixth and final points-paying position, Pierluigi Martini in the Dallara. He is followed by Aguri Suzuki, Carl Wendlinger, Christian Fittipaldi, and Paul Belmondo. A look at the overall points in the championship. Nigel Mansell with a perfect 40 over Riccardo Patrese, who dropped out, and Michael Schumacher. Don't forget, our next Grand Prix stop will be the Grand Prix of Imola, the San Marino Grand Prix in Imola, Italy, that is. We thank you for joining us here at Barcelona. Nigel Mansell makes his way into the Parc Fermé to have his Williams Renault looked over and looked upon with envy by all of the other drivers in Formula One. I'm Bob Varsha for Andrew Marriott and David Hobbs. Thanks for being with us. So long from Barcelona.